Good morning. Now let us see about the cognition cycle in the cognitive radio. So in the cognition cycle, this is the cognition cycle. So it has the orient phase, observe phase, decide phase and the act phase. So let us see them in detail. The architecture comprises of a set of design rules by which cognition level of information services is achieved by a set of components which supports cost-effective evolution of increasingly capable implementations over time. Cognition subsystem includes an inference hierarchy, temporal organization, flow of inferences, and control states. So let us go into detail about the cognition cycle. So this cycle implements the capabilities in a reactive sequence. The stimuli enters the cognitive radio as sensory interrupts, dispatched to the cognition cycle for a response. Each cognitive radio continually observes the environment, orients itself, creates plan, decides, and then acts. So we have different types of epochs: wake epoch, sleep epoch, dream epoch, and prayer epoch. Now, what is the wake epoch? Primary reasoning activities reactive to the environment. So, the receipt of a new stimulus, new primary cognition cycle, machine learning, computationally intensive, cognitive radio, sleep, and prayer epoch will support machine learning. Sleep epoch, power down conditions, long time period not in use, sufficient electric power for processing cognitive radio machine learning algorithms without detracting from its ability. Dream epoch, computationally intensive pattern recognition and learning. Prayer epoch, it is the interacting with a higher authority, network infrastructure, the learning opportunities not resolved in sleep epoch brought to prayer epoch. Now, what is the observe phase? The observation phase. So, it deals with the sense and perceive. Cognition observes the environment by passing the incoming information streams, monitoring, and speech to text conversion of radio broadcast. So, what is the observation phase? It reads the location, temperature, light level sensors. It infers users' communication context, senses, and perceives the environment. Multiple stimuli binding, it generates plans for the action. Cognitive radio aggregates experience. It compares the prior aggregates to the current situation. So, it is a novelty detector or a new stimuli. Partially familiar stimuli identify incremental learning primitives. So, in the observe phase, usury sensory perception plus the environment sensor subsystems. Both these comprise the observation phase. Next, what is the orient phase? It determines the significance of observation by binding the observation by the previously known set of stimuli. So the orient phase contains internal data structures, short-term memory, long-term memory, natural environment, information redundancy. cognitive radio transfer from short-term memory to long-term memory. So here the sleep cycle is analyzed both internally and with respect to the existing long-term memory. So the orient phase is the collection of activity in the cognition component. So it matches the stimulus recognition and binding. So what is the stimulus recognition? It observes where there is an exact match of the current stimulus and prior experience. So the prototype is continually recognizing the exact matches and recording the exact matches that occurred along with time, measured in the number of cognition cycles between the last exact match. So by default, the response to a given stimulus is to repeat the stimulus to the next layer up the inference hierarchy for aggregation of the raw stimuli. So what is binding? Occurs when there is nearly exact match current stimulus with the prior experience. Criteria for applying prior experience to the current stimulation has been met. Binding in the first step in generation, a plan for behaving in the current state behavior to the last occurrence of the stimuli. So here it determines priority associated with the stimuli, better binding, higher priority for autonomous learning, less effective binding, lower priority for the incipient plan. So the stimuli are dealt deliberately rather than reactively. An incoming network message will generate a plan. It's called the normal path. So the planning includes plan generation, formal models for causality. It includes reasoning about time, reactive responses pre-programmed, stimulus associated simple plan as a function of planning parameters plus the planning system. The open source planning tools, embedding of planning subsystems, enhance the plan component, enable synthesis of RF and information access behaviors in a goal-oriented way based on perceptions and rules and previously learned user preferences. In the decide phase, it selects the candidate plan. It has a choice, alerts the user to the incoming message. It defers interruption until so this later, that is the screening of calls during an important meeting. So what is the act phase? Initiates selected processing using effector modules. Effectors may access the entire world or cognitive various states. Externally oriented actions. The access to the external world consists of comprising messages to be broken into local environment or expressed in text form locally or to the other cognitive radio. It is a knowledge query and manipulation language or the radio knowledge representation language or web ontology language or radio extensible markup language or appropriate knowledge interchange standard. The internally oriented actions include machine controllable resources. So the cognitive radio can affect the contents of internal models, acting a model of stimulus, experience, response to the existing internal model structure. Multiple independent sources of the same concept in a scene reinforce that concept that can see the experience. So it reactively integrated into the RxML knowledgeable structures of the learning phase. So what is a function which deals in the learning, perception, observation, decision, and actions. So, initial learning, the observe phase, perception hierarchy, continually matched against all the prior stimuli to continually count occurrence and to remember the time since last occurrences from primitives to aggregates. So it is the introduction of new internal models, existing models and case-based reasoning binding. Many opportunities to integrate machine learning into the cognitive radio. So the learning mechanisms, it is a new type and internally generated model. Thank you.